with music for weekdays on BYU-Idaho Radio. We'll now turn the time over to John McSwain for an interview.
Thanks, Megan. You're listening to Weekdays on BYU-Idaho Radio. I'm John McSwain. Jack Summers is a musician who made history at the Thornshire Renaissance Faire by playing the Aulos. During our interview, we'll talk about the emotions Jack felt receiving word that he made history in the United States, the history of ancient instruments, as well as the pros and cons of learning how to play the Aulos. So tell me, what is the emotional feeling you received when you were notified that you made history by becoming the first professional Aulos player in the United States?
Well, my initial reaction was a disbelief, mostly because I made this instrument myself out of, some reeds I found in a parking lot. And I had to assume there was someone with a professional-made instrument who had been. But according to Barnaby Brown, one of the world leaders of the Aulos, who meets with, pretty much everyone who plays it, first one to be paid to play it somewhere, which, I'll take it. I'll take it if it's.
How did you come to create the instrument?
Well, it started with a bit of an obsession after I first heard it in a YouTube video, and just was too interested in it. It just, because it has a feel almost like a bagpipe, but without a drone. You can just kind of move, so you have a fluid harmony you can play with it. And so I was just kind of obsessed for months and months, and then we came across the reeds, and the process for making it was rather simple in terms of the pipes. Making the reeds is a bit of a hassle. It requires a certain degree of finesse that I have not mastered, but I got two that work, and that's all you need.
Absolutely. How long did it take you to perfect your creation?
We were able to make one on the first night we tried. My partner and I made them. And it took probably 3 hours of delicately scraping each of the pieces of cane and then kind of boiling them and putting a little waste on it and flattening them. And we broke probably 10 and got one out of it. So the odds are not in my favor generally.
But you did it.
Managed to get it done, yeah.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Did you do any other research of the history of Aulos instruments before learning how to play it?
Like I said, I had a bit of an obsession for probably 6-7 months before I was able to make one, and I must have watched every YouTube video and read nearly every paper I could find on it, because one of the interesting things about it is until probably the last 20 years, we didn't really have working reproductions, and it's only been in the last 5 years that we've gotten the right kind of reed, because it uses a different sort of cane than an oboe or bassoon reed, which is what is most commonly available. And looking at the historical records that were written by ancient Greeks, the kind of description they give for the cane points to the common reed as opposed to the great reed. And so it's only been in the last 5 years that it's really become a real reproduction of what would have been played back in the day.
Do you know how old the Aulos instrument is?
So it goes way back. It was the popular instrument in ancient Greece and ancient Egypt, back to Mesopotamia. So easily from the Code of Hammurabi to the fall of Rome, this was the thing to be playing. I don't know what the earliest find is, but the one I based my pipes on is dated to around 400, 450 BC.
That's a long time ago, Jack.
It's ways, yeah.
What are some pros and cons of learning how to play the Aulos?
Well, the cons come primarily, I would say, with the style that I chose to make, because this is a more ancient style where the holes are bored not to like, you couldn't match them to piano keys. They're kind of like oddly spaced, so you can bend every note to whatever you want it to be, which is wonderful, and it adds a lot of wonderful color to your playing, but it also kind of makes it hard to get the right note. You kind of have to be constantly changing each note as you're playing it, which I would say is the biggest drawback. And in terms of positives, I can't really put into words the magical experience of playing this instrument. Because you can just, like, it has such an it's just so intuitive as you're playing it. It feels like an extension of myself in a way, and like just being able to bring a series of notes into tune. There's not really any other instrument that you get to have that level of control over, because there's not really any instruments that have two notes that you're playing in your mouth. It's kind of unique in that way, and that's kind of sort of what drew me to it.
Can you tell me the story behind you coming to be invited to play at the Thornshire Renaissance Faire, and is this your first time performing at the fair?
I actually was able to perform last year as well, which I had just made these and was not very good at playing them at that time. Still have much to learn, but yeah, I got to perform there because my mother-outlaw here. So how do I explain? So your son, so would be my partner's brother is a knight in the fair, and so they've kind of been involved in the whole setup of it. And we were just invited as musician, need someone to be there to make sounds walking around the fair. And this year we got paid, and it was a delight, honestly. Like I played this more than I ever have during the fair. Honestly, it probably did too much. I kind of messed up my reeds with it, but
long as it was a fun experience, and getting paid is quite a benefit, isn't it?
That really does help. And then it's the getting paid is what technically made me the first professional. So
yeah, which is cool, man. What are some reactions and compliments you received from people who attended the fair?
I got a lot of very, very curious raised eyebrows. Several of the vendors at the fair would stop me as I was walking by and be like, What are you doing? What is that? And I think the best compliment I got was that it was kind of like mellow and hypnotic, which is sort of the vibe that I hope to accomplish with it. Whereas I feel like a lot of the time it's a little more honky and annoying. But people seemed to be responding well to it, which I appreciated.
What other historic instruments have you played or interested in playing?
Well, I yesterday made an overtone flute, and that has been a lot of fun to play as well. In terms of other historical instruments, I want to make one of the later versions, like a Greco-Roman style of Aulos, which is a little different in the fingering and spacing and different sort of reed. And then other than that, I want to get a lyre, like a Greek lyre, to play along with the Aulos, because just the Aulos by itself is delightful, but it needs a little, something to ground it a little bit. Historical instruments really are kind of one of my passions. If I would like to delve more into that as time goes on.
Do you plan to perform as an Aulos musician at any other fairs or events?
I don't have any plans at this moment, but I certainly intend to at some point. I haven't, scheduled any fairs, but that hopefully is the goal.
In your opinion, do you see more musicians being influenced to incorporate the Aulos or any other forgotten ancient instrument in their music?
I really, really hope so. Like, if there's one thing I would really like to see is stuff like the Aulos coming back. Because they're really, and as I've been reading more and more about different different ancient instruments. There's so many like wonderful little quirky instruments that have just been forgotten or outshined by the slightly more modern variants. And I think if I could like devote myself to one project, it would be trying to revive, like, be it, the Aulos and ancient Greek instruments, or further through like the Renaissance and stuff, because there was a lot of wonderful little designs during that period. But
what type of headspace? I mean, you touched on this a little before, but what type of headspace or emotional feeling can someone benefit from listening to music played by the Aulos?
Well, there's a lot of interesting effects that you can generate with it, just based on kind of the tone of it and the way that it has these flexible reeds. And so I kind of want to go into the history about it, wherein it was the Aulos was kind of like the central instrument for the ancient Greeks. Like, it would be, you couldn't row a ship, you couldn't have a funeral or perform any kind of ritual without having an Aulos player. And is it I believe Plato? It was banned in Plato's Republic for the levels of like kind of excitatory states it could get people into. It's like just too chaotic. I need to put it to the side. But it really it can really do some interesting sonic effects, just because it has just that sort of inherent harmony between the two pipes, and it kind of just the way you can like subtly tune things and get these really beautiful, perfect intervals. It's magical is the only word I can ever use to describe it. It really, it's quite a mystical little set of pipes.
Is there a certain note or certain two notes that creates that magical experience?
Could I demonstrate?
Yes, please.
Okay. Because, as I said, the reeds are very flexible, which allows for some subtle little movements, which like... So you can have like a nice unison, and then as you can take it and bend it and get these... I think the real magic comes in what is called interference beats, where you have two notes that are ever so slightly out of tune, and it creates, a beat. If something like that.
I hear that, what you're explaining, and as you're playing, I'm feeling that emotion. It's like, this is, some type of ceremonial type of music
It
that
can really,
I need in my life. That's very good.
See, I think that's one of the problems in the modern world, is we don't have Auletes around all the time playing the pipes, and like the guy who told me I was the first professional, Barnaby Brown, says it's tuning the soul as you're playing it. It because you really have to focus, and you have to like hear in your head the note you want to play, and it just that kind of resonance it can bring as you're bringing it into tune. It has an effect as a player. Like, I've never, because I play several instruments, not really wind instruments generally, but like the closest thing I've ever had is maybe a violin, because you can get that like level of changing fine details to your notes. But even that, it's like there's so many levels of abstraction between you and the instrument. Like, the thing with these is it really feels so direct and so like personal, because you have these two notes just buzzing in your face.
Thanks for giving me that example and explaining that. It's important to know. Music to me is everything. It's been around for forever, like you said, and Plato even has a saying about it, but it just soothes the soul, and it's just great for the world. It really is. how can people connect with you, Jack, if they want to hire you to perform at their event?
Maybe look me up on Facebook. Oh, there is a Facebook group for anyone interested in the Aulos, and they meet on Zoom every couple of weeks, which, if anyone's interested, that's the way to go about it. Yeah. You could reach out to the Thornshire Renaissance Faire, and they could probably get a hold of me.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, most businesses, Facebook is the way to go anyway. So, Jack Summers' Facebook page, like it, and, hire this man who's very talented and, as a musician. And, man, it looks like you are kind of innovating or bringing back, these ancient instruments and, influence that, is needed in the world. So thank you.
And that really, I think, is the thing. Is like the revival of this instrument is very new. I don't know. Like I said, again, I had an obsession with it, and then to find that I could get involved and make my own, and like talk to some of the world leaders and playing it, and just the fact that it's kind of the cutting edge. I mean, 400 BC, but the cutting edge, as it were, today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Jack, for joining me and coming in today to history background on the Aulos.
Of course.
I said that right?
Aulos, that's the way.
Love it. And just giving me your time and just, giving me a little more insight on how you came to be the first professional Aulos player in America.
Thanks for having me on.
That was Jack Summers, a musician who made history at the Thornshire Renaissance Faire playing an ancient Greek instrument, the Aulos. Jack is the first professional Aulos musician in the United States. The Aulos was a popular instrument for ceremonial celebrations in ancient Greece. The creation of the instrument dates to 5000 BCE. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Weekdays on BYU-Idaho Radio. Megan Reed had this hour's music, and I'm John McSwain. Join us tomorrow for another episode at noon and 6 p.m. Be informed, be inspired. BYU-Idaho Radio.